So research shows absolutely zero correlation between standard time management training and actual productivity or stress reduction. Zero.
Not at all. Yeah.
I mean, let that sink in for a second. If you're listening to this right now, just think about all the energy you've spent over the years trying to optimize your day.
Oh, the seminars, the planners.
Right. You take the seminars, you buy those, high-end leather-bound planners, you color code your digital calendars.
That's downloading every new productivity app that comes out.
Exactly. And yet, the data tells us that at the end of the day, your stress levels are identical, and your actual meaningful output just hasn't moved an inch.
It is honestly a phenomenal illusion we've all completely bought into. We've basically been treating a fundamental structural problem with cosmetic band-aids.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Because when you actually look at the long-term data on those corporate time management seminars, the correlation with sustained performance is just non-existent.
Really. Like, totally flat.
Totally flat. I mean, people get a temporary burst of motivation, right? A little dopamine hit from, organizing their stationery.
Oh, I love buying new pens. It feels like I'm doing work.
Exactly. But within 3 weeks, they are right back to drowning.
It's like trying to bail out a sinking boat with a colander.
Yes.
You're doing this massive amount of frantic scooping. Maybe you even go out and buy a more expensive, ergonomically designed colander.
Or take a workshop on how to scoop faster.
Right. But the water just keeps rising because the tool itself is fundamentally flawed. I mean, scooping faster doesn't change the physics of the hole in the boat.
And that is the exact mechanical failure we're looking at today. In this deep dive, our entire mission is to examine the people who actually built a better boat.
Which is what we all want.
Absolutely. We're pulling from an incredibly dense stack of source material that analyzes the precise daily habits of hundreds of ultra-successful individuals.
We're talking self-made billionaires like Mark Cuban, Olympic gold medalists like Shannon Miller.
Yeah, and even straight-A students who maintain flawless GPAs without, suffering from that systemic burnout.
So we're going to deconstruct exactly how these outliers view the 4,440 minutes we all get in a single day.
Right. 1,440 minutes.
That number is the inescapable baseline of this entire conversation. You have 1,440, I have 1,440.
Everyone listening has exactly 1,440.
So if everything we've been taught in, standard corporate training is wrong, what is the underlying paradigm shift these top performers are making?
Well, the shift is that they completely abandon the concept of managing time altogether.
Wait, they don't manage time?
No, because time cannot be managed. It passes at the exact same rate regardless of what you do. Right?
That's true. You can't slow it down.
Exactly. What these high achievers are actually doing is managing their values, their strict priorities, and their energy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. They don't use complex prioritization matrices where you assign a theoretical number to a task. They view time as a rigid, unyielding physical container. And they are ruthlessly, almost violently protective of what they allow inside it.
So if we want to understand where the rest of us are going wrong, we have to look at the primary tool almost everyone listening uses to navigate their day, right?
The absolute villain of this story.
Yes, the to-do list.
The to-do list is, without a doubt, the single biggest saboteur of modern productivity.
That is a bold statement.
But the data is definitive on this. Highly successful people actively avoid to-do lists, and the reason is structural. A to-do list is essentially a graveyard of good intentions.
A graveyard. Wow.
Yeah, because research tracking daily task management reveals that roughly 4% of items on a typical to-do list are never completed.
Yeah.
Forever. They just sit there perpetually migrating from Monday's list to Tuesday's list to next month's list. And it just constantly drains your psychological energy.
It's like the infinite scroll of our own obligations. I can personally attest to this. I mean, I have items on a digital list right now from 6 months ago that I just keep dragging down to the bottom.
Yep. We all do it.
And honestly, just seeing the words sitting there actually triggers a physiological stress response in me. My chest tightens a little bit every single time I look at it.
Well, your chest tightens because of a very specific cognitive mechanism called the Zeigarnik effect.
The Zeigarnik effect.
Yeah. It's a psychological phenomenon where your brain involuntarily fixates on unfinished tasks.
Oh, of course.
Because evolutionarily, your brain is designed to keep you alive by tracking threats or, necessary actions that haven't been resolved yet.
Right, like a tiger in the bushes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you write something on a to-do list, your brain registers it as an open loop.
Okay.
But because a list has no spatial or temporal boundaries it's not anchored to a specific time or place, your subconscious has to constantly actively monitor it.
Oh, man. So it's meaning, like, your working memory is acting like the RAM on a computer.
Yes, that's a perfect
Well,
analogy.
and every item on that list is a background application running and just draining the battery. That completely explains the 3 a.m. panic. You wake up staring at the ceiling, your heart racing, suddenly remembering you never sent that tax document to your accountant.
Yep.
Your brain is literally attacking you with your own unanchored list.
Precisely. Because your brain is trying to do its job. It's trying to protect you by reminding you of the open loop.
Right.
But it does so at 3 a.m. because the to-do list itself gives the brain no context for when the task will actually be handled.
Because the list is just an infinite receptacle.
Exactly. It doesn't care if you have 24 hours in a day or 200. It simply accepts endless inputs.
So how do we fix that?
Well, to counteract this, the ultra performers use time blocking, or time boxing. Every single thing they intend to do is scheduled directly into a fixed calendar.
Okay, let me pressure test this a bit, because on the surface, moving words from a notepad to a digital calendar grid doesn't really sound like a revolution.
I know, it sounds simple.
Right. Isn't a calendar just a to-do list with time slots attached? Like, how does that actually stop the 3 a.m. panic?
It stops the panic because it forces a confrontation with physical reality.
Confrontation with reality. Okay, explain that.
Think about the mechanics of it. When you add a task to a list, it takes up, what, half an inch of paper?
Yeah, you can fit 50 tasks on a page easily.
Right. But when you move a task to a calendar, it takes up a literal block of the 4,040 minutes you have available.
Ah.
So if you want to work out, you don't just write workout on a piece of paper. You block out 7:40 a.m. to 7:45 a.m. on Tuesday.
And that changes it.
It changes everything. You have now closed the loop. The Zeigarnik effect is muted because your brain looks at the calendar and says, I don't need to worry about the accountant email at 3 a.m.
Because there's a specific time for it.
Exactly. There is a dedicated, protected 15-minute block at 10 a.m. tomorrow, specifically for financial admin. Your brain can let it go.
You're giving your subconscious permission to just stand down.
Yes.
But here is the friction point for the listener. What happens when reality hits?
Ah, the emergencies.
Right. You block out 10:00 a.m. for your financial admin, and at 9:05 a.m., your boss drops an absolute fire on your desk. Doesn't extreme scheduling become incredibly brittle the second you introduce other human beings into the equation?
This is the most common resistance to time blocking for sure, and it requires a fundamental shift in how you view your own autonomy.
Okay.
The source material emphasizes that high achievers treat a scheduled block of time as immutable. You treat it exactly like a doctor's appointment.
Wait, exactly like it.
Exactly. If your boss drops a fire on your desk, the calendar forces a negotiation of reality. You don't just add the new task to an infinite pile.
Because you can't. The container is full.
Right. You look at your finite calendar and you say, I can handle this crisis right now, but that means the 10:30 a.m. financial admin block must be deleted and moved to Thursday. Are we comfortable with that trade-off?
Wow, that is entirely different from just, quietly absorbing the extra work and silently drowning.
Which is what most people do.
Yeah, you're using the calendar as a visual boundary to force the people around you to acknowledge your limits.
Exactly. It makes the invisible constraints of your time visible to everyone, including yourself.
That's powerful.
It really is. A behavioral study from 2015 on productivity habits found that the people who consistently report the lowest levels of procrastination and the highest levels of sustained energy are those who strictly schedule their tasks.
Because they don't use lists.
Right. It isn't a prison sentence. It's cognitive liberation. You eliminate the constant, exhausting friction of deciding what to do next.
But this brings us to a terrifying mathematical wall.
The math doesn't lie.
It really doesn't, because if you're mapping everything onto a fixed, finite calendar, you realize incredibly quickly that the math doesn't work. You physically cannot fit all your responsibilities, your goals, your family obligations, and your emails into those 1,440 minutes.
No, you can't.
Things are going to fall off the board. So how do these billionaires and Olympians decide what actually gets a slot?
They rely on the concept of the MIT, the most important task.
The MIT.
Yes. And it is relentlessly singular. If you want to operate at this level, you must define your absolute biggest objective. Break it down into its component parts, identify the single most crucial activity you can take right now to advance it, and you tackle that MIT before anything else every single day.
The sources featured Kevin Harrington, one of the original investors on Shark Tank.
Oh, his method is fascinating.
It's almost jarring in its literalness.
Yeah.
He doesn't just evaluate if a project is interesting. He calculates the total time required, the projected financial return, and he distills it down to the profit per minute.
Yes.
He literally anchors his MIT to a metric of earning $1 million a week.
It's a stark example of refusing to treat time as abstract. He treats a minute like a unit of currency.
Right.
Now, the listener might not be measuring their MIT in millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Your MIT might be finishing a thesis, getting a promotion, or ensuring your kids have an hour of undivided attention.
Whatever is most important to you.
Exactly. But the underlying mechanics are the same. If an incoming request does not serve the MIT, it is denied entry to the calendar.
Wow.
And underlying this entire system is a harsh existential reality that we all have to accept. You will never finish everything.
Okay, let's pause right there. I want the listener to really internalize that. You will never finish everything.
Never. The influx of demands is infinite.
Yeah.
There will always be another email in the inbox, another networking opportunity, another room in the house to clean, another project to refine.
It never stops.
No. And if your goal is to get it all done, you are playing a game that is mathematically rigged against you.
You literally can't win.
Right. The high achievers accept this. They cultivate the discipline to simply cut off their work at a predetermined time, fully aware that the pile is still there, and they just walk away.
But we are conditioned to believe the exact opposite. We are sold this toxic narrative that if you just hustle harder, if you optimize your workflow, you can achieve this mythical state of inbox zero in your life.
It is a myth. And worse, it disproportionately harms people who feel an outsized responsibility to be everything to everyone.
Yeah, the source data highlights an extensive survey of over 2,000 women regarding their daily routines.
That survey was very revealing.
The overwhelming consensus was that their primary daily struggle is the exhausting attempt to flawlessly execute multiple conflicting roles simultaneously.
Being the perfect mother, the perfect employee, the perfect spouse, the perfect friend.
The study actually called it the disease to please.
Yes.
And it struck me because it shows how deeply positive traits, like the desire to nurture, to support, to be a team player, can actually be weaponized against your own time.
Absolutely weaponized.
This disease to please means your daily calendar isn't dictated by your MIT or your own values. It's dictated by a desperate, ongoing attempt to manage other people's expectations and, secure their validation.
That is the exact trap. When you operate from the disease to please, you are entirely reactive. Your time is just a public utility that anyone can tap into.
A public utility. That hurts, but it's true.
It is. And the universal defense mechanism people use when they realize their own goals are decaying is the phrase, "I just don't have time."
Oh, this was a massive light bulb moment for me. "I don't have time" is almost always a polite fiction.
Usually, yes.
What it really means is this is not a priority.
Right.
Because going back to the baseline, Mark Cuban has 4,440 minutes. You listening to this have 4,440 minutes. We all have the exact same allocation of time.
Exactly.
So when you say you don't have time to exercise or you don't have time to start that business, it is literally a refusal to own the choices you are making with your minutes.
It is an abdication of your own agency. Think about it. If someone asked you to do a task and offered you $1 million in cash to complete it by tomorrow, suddenly you would have the time.
Oh, 100%. I'd find it.
You would cancel your dinner, you'd skip your favorite show, you would find the time. Therefore, the time exists.
Right.
The issue is prioritization. Acknowledging that every "I don't have time" is actually an "I am choosing not to prioritize this" is uncomfortable, but it is the critical first step toward reclaiming your agency.
And once you take that agency back, you have to defend it. You have to build a fortress around those 1,440 minutes.
Yes.
Which brings us to a single, powerful word that defines the boundary of that fortress.
The word is no.
Warren Buffett summarized this perfectly in the research. He noted that the difference between successful people and very successful people is that the very successful people say no to almost everything.
It sounds so simple, right?
Right.
But the psychology behind it is incredibly complex.
How so?
You have to understand that time is a strict zero-sum game. Every single time you say yes to something, you are, by biological necessity, saying no to something else.
Because you only have the 4,440 minutes.
Exactly. If you agree to sit on a minor committee at work, you're saying yes to the committee, but you're saying no to 2 hours of deep work on your MIT, or no to 2 hours of sleep, or no to being present at your family dinner.
Wow, framing it that way makes it hurt a little.
It should. But our brains actively try to obscure this trade-off from us through a cognitive bias known as the future illusion.
Let's break down the future illusion because if you're a professional, you fall into this trap constantly.
We all do. The future illusion, or temporal discounting, is a glitch in human cognition where we genuinely believe that our future selves will have more free time, more energy, and fewer problems than our present selves.
Yes. I always think I'll be less busy next month.
Right. So a colleague comes up to you and says, hey, we're launching a new initiative in 4 months. Can you head up the steering committee?
And right now, today, you're completely overwhelmed.
You are drowning. But you look 4 months down the road and your calendar looks delightfully blank. So you say, sure, I'll have more bandwidth then.
But future you is not a superhero. The reality is, 4 months from now, your kid is still going to get the flu. Your car is still going to need a new alternator. A completely new crisis will have emerged at work. The baseline chaos of being a human being does not vanish just because you flip a few pages forward in the planner.
The baseline chaos remains constant. The high achievers counteract the future illusion by evaluating every single request with a brutal heuristic.
Which is?
If I had to fulfill this commitment tomorrow, would I say yes?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If your schedule is too packed to do it tomorrow, you do not have the time to do it in 4 months. You have to decline it today.
The discipline required to do that is intense.
It really is.
The research highlights Haley Silva, a straight A student, as a prime example of this. We look at elite students because they are operating in an environment of pure, raw time pressure with very easily measurable outcomes.
Right. The GPA doesn't lie.
Exactly. Haley explicitly advises saying no, even to friends. She actively prioritizes her MIT, her academic performance, and sets a boundary, knowing that true friends will respect the constraints she places on her time.
Setting that boundary, especially in a socially driven environment like college or, a collaborative corporate office, requires a profound tolerance for temporary social friction.
You have to be okay with people being a little annoyed with you.
You have to be willing to disappoint people in the micro so you don't disappoint yourself in the macro.
That's beautifully said. But if we are saying no to almost everything, how do we systematically identify the rare things that demand a yes?
That's the million-dollar question.
How do we know what actually moves the needle? The data points us toward the 80-20 rule, widely known as the Pareto principle. And I want to get straight into the mechanics of this because I think most people have heard the term, but they severely misunderstand how to actually apply it to their Tuesday morning.
Right. Well, the Pareto principle states that a radical imbalance exists between inputs and outputs. Roughly 80% of your results will come from just 20% of your efforts. The exact numbers might fluctuate. It might be 90-10 or 70-30. But the core truth is that your activities are simply not created equal. Most of what you do all day simply doesn't matter that much.
It's terrifying to look at your workday and realize that 80% of the emails you send, the meetings you attend, and the reports you tweak are generating almost zero actual value.
It is terrifying, but it is also the key to leverage. In a business context, 80% of revenue usually comes from 20% of the clients. In healthcare, a fraction of patients consume the vast majority of resources.
So it's a universal law.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
So the task for the listener today is to audit their own life. Look at the last 2 weeks of your calendar. What were the 20% of activities that actually generated revenue, advanced your career, or brought you profound joy?
And
You must aggressively reallocate your limited 1,440 minutes toward that 20% and mercilessly prune the 80%.
I want to push back on this, though, because there's a deeply controversial example in the research material.
Oh, the college student.
Yes. It profiles a college student who applies the 80-20 rule to textbook reading. To secure an automatic B grade, they only read the first and last paragraph of a chapter and the first sentence of the internal paragraph.
Okay.
They skip the vast majority of the actual text. Let's be honest. Is this highly strategic time management? Or is this just intellectual laziness? Aren't they cheating themselves out of an education?
It's a brilliant stress test of the principle. To the traditional academic mindset, it absolutely looks like laziness.
Right, it looks like they're just slacking off.
But if we evaluate this through the lens of pure resource allocation, it is highly strategic. It comes down to defining the MIT. If the student's ultimate goal is simply to pass the class with a B so they can maintain their scholarship, and they have calculated that reading 20% of the text yields 80% of the required comprehension.
Then reading the rest is a waste.
Exactly. Reading the other 80% of the book is a catastrophic waste of their time.
So it's about the opportunity cost. Because if they don't spend those 6 hours reading every single word, what are they doing with that time?
Precisely. They are deploying those 6 hours toward their actual MIT. Maybe they are spending that time mastering a core class that is vital for their major. Or maybe they're using those hours to build a startup in their dorm room.
Wow. Okay, I see it.
Perfectionism, the desire to do a 100% thorough job on a task that only requires a B effort, is the enemy of productivity. Identifying the crucial 20% allows you to survive the low-yield demands of life without sacrificing the high-yield goals.
That is a tough pill to swallow for the perfectionists listening. You are essentially giving them permission to be intentionally mediocre at the things that don't matter.
Sometimes you have to be.
But that leads us right into the mechanical reality of life. Even if you identify your 20%, you are still stuck with the 80%.
The clutter.
Right. The oil still needs changing. The bureaucratic compliance forms at work still need to be filled out. What do we actually do with the clutter?
This is where we transition from strategy to tactics. You have to build a system to process the clutter. The behavioral research recommends conducting a formal time audit every single year with one specific goal: to find a way to shed an additional 15% of your responsibilities.
Okay, how do we do that?
You systematically attack the 80% using a framework known as the 3Ds: drop, delegate, redesign.
Let's walk the listener through this. You look at a task on your calendar and you ask the first D, what happens if I drop this completely?
And you must ask this with total objectivity.
Mm-hmm.
We perform countless tasks purely out of institutional momentum or just habit.
Like what?
Like a weekly report you've generated for 2 years that no one actually reads anymore, or a neighborhood committee meeting you hate attending. If the answer to what happens if I drop this is nothing of consequence, you eliminate it immediately. No guilt, just drop it.
If it survives the first D, you move to the second. Delegate. Can anyone else do this? And this is where things get really contentious.
Yes, it is.
The sources include a story about a startup founder who was literally sprinting down the street to the dry cleaners, drenched in sweat, terrified he was going to miss a crucial flight.
Such a classic story.
He was having a panic attack over picking up his suits. And mid-sprint, he has this epiphany. What am I doing? I am risking a vital business trip and burning peak cognitive energy over a menial chore.
He realized the profound opportunity cost of his physical time. Every minute he spent sprinting to the dry cleaner was a minute he wasn't refining his pitch or resting his mind.
Exactly. So he started hiring help for just 2 hours a day to handle those chores. He traded money for time.
Which is the smartest trade you can make.
But I have to stop right here and challenge this on behalf of the listener, because it is incredibly easy for a well-funded startup founder or a billionaire to say, just delegate it, hire a personal assistant.
Sure.
That sounds incredibly tone-deaf to a listener who is a mid-level manager or a single parent making an average salary. How does a normal person justify this?
It is the most vital pushback to this concept. But we have to reframe what outsourcing actually looks like. We aren't talking about hiring a full-time executive assistant with a salary and benefits.
Okay, so what are we talking about?
We are talking about micro-outsourcing to buy back specific, highly leveraged mental bandwidth. The research argues that you often can't afford not to do this, regardless of your tax bracket.
Give me an example.
Take a stay-at-home parent or someone working demanding 9 to 5. Paying a local teenager $20 to mow the lawn, or paying a college student to watch the kids for just 2 hours on a Saturday afternoon is a microtransaction.
But the psychological return on that $20 is massive.
The return is exponential. You aren't just buying 2 hours. You are buying the cognitive relief of not having to worry about the lawn.
Right.
You are buying a 2-hour block of uninterrupted silence to work on a side hustle, to study for a certification, or simply to decompress so you don't burn out. You are trading a small amount of capital to protect your most valuable, non-renewable asset, your 440 minutes.
So the rule of thumb that top performers use is to outsource absolutely everything, with only 3 exceptions.
Correct.
Let's list those 3 exceptions. Number 1, you never outsource something that genuinely rejuvenates you. If chopping vegetables for dinner lowers your blood pressure and brings you peace, keep doing it.
Right. Keep the joy.
Number 2, you never outsource your core genius or passion. And number 3, you don't outsource tasks where the time it takes to explain it to someone else is longer than the time it takes to just do it yourself.
Exactly. But what about the tasks that survive the drop and delegate filters? The minor, unavoidable administrative drag of modern life.
Right. The stuff you just have to do.
This is where we hit the redesign phase, and specifically the touch it once rule.
Touch it once. If we look at how people interact with Slack, Teams, and email, this is revolutionary.
It really is.
Let's say an email comes in. Most people read it, realize it requires a quick decision or a short response, but they feel a slight wave of decision fatigue, so they hit mark as unread to deal with it later.
It's a comfort mechanism. You feel like you've accomplished something by reading it, but you've actually created a massive inefficiency.
How?
Think about what you've just done. You expended time opening the email, you burned cognitive energy reading and understanding the context, and then, by marking it unread, you reopened a Zeigarnik loop in your brain.
Oh, man.
You have to carry the memory of that email around with you until you open it again. You have touched it, but you haven't processed it.
You are paying for the exact same piece of real estate twice.
Precisely. High achievers categorically refuse to pay twice. The touch it once rule dictates that if a task takes less than a few minutes, like replying to a brief email, signing a digital document, confirming a calendar invite, you deal with it the exact second you encounter it.
Right then and there?
You do not let it fester. You touch it once, you resolve it, and you permanently expel it from your cognitive ecosystem.
It's like swatting a mosquito the second you see it, rather than letting it buzz around your head for 8 hours. So we are dropping tasks, we are delegating, we are touching things once, we are aggressively clearing out the noise.
Yes.
But what do we do with the signal? How do the top performers manage the ideas they actually want to keep without letting them clog up their brains?
They utilize an incredibly low-tech mechanism to externalize their memory.
The $1 million lesson from Aristotle Onassis.
That's the one.
Onassis was a Greek shipping magnate, one of the wealthiest men in the world, and his absolute secret weapon wasn't a supercomputer. It was a physical paper notebook. He carried it everywhere.
Everywhere.
He wrote down every stray idea, every observation, every detail about the people he met. His philosophy was brilliantly simple. If it is written down, you will act on it. If it is not written down, it will be forgotten.
And what Onassis was doing, intuitively, was managing his cognitive load. By writing the idea down on physical paper, he transferred the burden of retention from his brain's working memory to an external hard drive.
Right, getting it out of the RAM.
Yes. His brain no longer had to expend energy trying to remember the idea, which freed up his mental RAM to continue being present and analyzing the room.
The source material paired the Onassis notebook with the philosophy of Jim Rohn, the legendary success coach. Rohn talked about the 3 treasures you should leave behind for the next generation.
I love this concept.
It wasn't your stock portfolio. It was your pictures, your library, meaning the books that literally shaped your worldview and your journals. Journaling isn't just about scheduling. It's a tangible proof that you are a serious student of your own life.
You're capturing your own genius. But capturing your genius is useless if you allow it to be drained away by the 2 most parasitic elements of the modern workday.
Emails and meetings.
Exactly. And high achievers have highly specific defense mechanisms against both.
Let's start with email. The advice from the data is honestly jarring. Keep them incredibly, almost uncomfortably short.
Uncomfortably short, yes.
The argument is that sending a one-sentence email isn't being rude. It is actually the highest form of professional respect.
We have been culturally conditioned to write emails as if they are formal Victorian-era correspondence.
I hope this email finds you well.
Yes. Followed by 3 paragraphs of throat-clearing context before finally burying the actual question at the very bottom.
It's exhausting.
It is a theft of the recipient's time. Top performers do not do this. They deliver the essential data or the required decision immediately.
So they just say what they need.
Right. The unspoken message is, I value your 1,440 minutes too much to make you read a novel to get to the point.
And then we reach the ultimate time parasite. The meeting. The data is unanimous on this. Billionaires despise traditional sit-down meetings. Mark Cuban has a famously brutal policy. He absolutely refuses to take a meeting unless, in his words, someone is writing a check.
It is a phenomenal heuristic. Is this interaction going to directly generate revenue or directly advance the MIT?
If the answer is no.
The meeting should be an email.
But the reality of corporate life is that some meetings are unavoidable. When they are, the data points to a highly effective physical hack, the stand-up meeting.
Stand-up meetings are incredible.
Right. Research published in the Journal of Applied Psychology found that stand-up meetings are 3% shorter than sit-down meetings, and the quality of the decisions made does not drop at all.
Yep.
Now, to the listener, 3% shorter might not sound revolutionary, But compound that 3% over a year of daily corporate meetings, and you are buying back weeks of your life.
The psychology behind why it works is fascinating.
It's the physics of a vacuum. A traditional sit-down meeting in a comfortable conference room is like a gas expanding to fill its container. If you schedule the room for 60 minutes, human nature guarantees that the attendees will find a way to talk for exactly 60 minutes.
Even if the core decision was reached in the first 10 minutes.
Exactly. Taking away the chairs removes the comfort from the container. It physically shrinks the container. People's legs get tired, they get slightly uncomfortable, and suddenly everyone is highly motivated to get straight to the point.
Exactly. Comfort breeds communicative complacency. Whether it is Cuban demanding a check or a team choosing themselves to stand, the underlying worldview is identical. Time is highly perishable.
It's not like money.
Yeah. You can lose $1 million and earn it back next year. But every hour trapped in a pointless meeting or spent deciphering a long-winded email is an unrecoverable theft of your most valuable, non-renewable asset.
They treat time like oxygen on a submarine. You do not waste a single breath.
That's a great image.
But treating time as precious isn't solely about defense. It isn't just about saying no and cutting things out. It is also about how you prime the machine to execute during the time you do have.
Yes, the offensive side.
It's about energy management, which starts the absolute second you open your eyes in the morning.
Time management and energy management are inextricably linked. The research places massive emphasis on morning routines, heavily citing Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning framework.
But we need to clarify what this actually means.
We do. Because the goal of a highly structured morning routine is not to cram more doing into your day. It is about becoming more before the day even starts.
Doing versus becoming.
Right.
Elrod uses the acronym LIFE, SAVERS, to map this out. Silence, like meditation. Affirmation, to cement your identity. Visualization, to see the execution of the MIT. Exercise, to spike the heart rate. Reading, to feed the intellect. Inscribing or journaling.
Beautifully balanced.
But the point isn't to just check 6 boxes so you can feel smug. The point is to deliberately calibrate the human instrument before you ask it to go play the music.
That is a perfect way to phrase it. You are calibrating the instrument, but once calibrated, you must play the right music at the exact right time.
Which leads us to biological energy matching.
Yes, brilliantly executed by writer Johnny B. Truant. He doesn't view his calendar as a block of equal interchangeable hours. He maps his tasks directly onto his natural circadian rhythm.
Okay, so how does he do that?
Well, he knows his peak cognitive focus naturally occurs in the early morning. Therefore, that is the only time he attempts his heavy lifting fiction writing.
He protects his peak energy for his peak tasks. He knows a post-lunch energy slump is biologically inevitable, so he doesn't fight it. He schedules low-stakes podcasts or casual meetings for 1:00 p.m.
Right.
And he saves the absolute brainless administrative tasks, the 80% clutter for the late afternoon when his cognitive battery is flashing red. He isn't trying to force a masterpiece out of a depleted brain at 4:30 p.m.
He is cooperating with his biology rather than fighting it. And this brings us to what I believe is the most critical and perhaps most countercultural segment of the data.
The necessity of rest.
The absolute necessity of sleep and rest.
Yeah.
For decades, we have been infected by the myth of the sleepless entrepreneur.
Oh, the hustle culture icon.
Yes, the guy who sleeps 3 hours a night in a beanbag chair under his desk and outworks everyone through sheer grinding exhaustion.
It's practically a religion in Silicon Valley and Wall Street.
And the physiological data completely dismantles it. Mark Sisson, a highly successful entrepreneur and author, aggressively warns against sacrificing sleep for the hustle. Sleep is not passive downtime where you are just off.
Right.
Sleep is an intensely active biological period where the brain physically rewires itself, clears out accumulated neurotoxins, and consolidates the day's memories and skills.
If you cut your sleep, you are literally preventing your brain from taking out the neurological trash.
Exactly.
You might be physically awake at your desk for 14 hours, but the quality of those hours degrades so severely that you are producing worse work than if you had slept for 8 hours and worked for 6. It is the ultimate law of diminishing returns.
And this biological reality applies just as heavily to how you structure your waking hours. There was a landmark study conducted by the Dragon Group using time tracking software.
This one blew my mind.
Right. They analyzed the habits of their top 10% most productive employees. The results were initially shocking to corporate management.
Because the top 10% were not the employees working the longest continuous hours.
Nope. The most productive people actually took significantly more breaks than their lower performing peers.
This is the 50-15 rule. The tracking software found a distinct optimal rhythm. 50 minutes of intense, deeply focused work, followed immediately by a 15-minute complete detachment from the work.
Because the brain is a biological organ, not a microchip, cognitive capacity steadily degrades the longer you maintain focus.
You cannot sprint a marathon.
You really can't. The 15-minute break acts as a neurological reset button. By stepping away entirely, you allow your cognitive capacity to rebound, meaning you enter the next 50-minute block operating at near peak efficiency again.
And it isn't just corporate workers who rely on this rhythm. The sources draw parallels to elite Olympic athletes. Competitors like Chris Carmichael, Will Dean, and Katie Uhlander all vocalize the exact same philosophy.
That rest is not the absence of training.
Yes, rest is an active, vital component of the training protocol. Downtime is absolutely non-negotiable if you expect peak performance.
The athlete's paradigm maps perfectly onto the knowledge worker. A powerlifter knows that the muscle does not grow while they are lifting the weight. The muscle actually tears.
The growth happens later.
The growth, the adaptation, happens during the recovery phase. For cognitive worker, the deep insights, the creative problem solving, and the resilience are forged during the periods of rest, not just during the intense staring at a monitor.
I have to challenge this, though, because everything you are saying goes against the grain of modern corporate culture.
It really does.
We actively glorify the 80-hour work week. We treat exhaustion as a moral virtue and a status symbol. If you bump into a colleague and ask how they are, the default socially rewarded answer is, "Oh man, I am just so incredibly busy."
It's a badge of honor for people.
It is wildly counterintuitive and frankly terrifying for a lot of people to accept that the best way to achieve more is to literally stop working, step away from the desk, and stare out a window for 15 minutes.
It is terrifying because it requires you to step outside the cultural norm. That is precisely why the individuals in this research are outliers.
They don't care about the norm.
Right. They are willing to ignore the theatrical performance of being busy in favor of the quiet, unglamorous mechanics of actually being productive. They willingly trade the superficial status symbol of exhaustion for the tangible, measurable results of sustained, well-rested focus.
Okay. If the blueprint is this clear, we have laid out the entire architecture today. Identify your MIT. Live entirely out of a finite calendar. Acknowledge you will never finish everything. Say no to protect the 20%. Use the 3Ds to delegate the 80%. Touch minor tasks only once. Calibrate your mornings and treat rest as a biological weapon.
That's the blueprint.
The blueprint is right there for anyone to use. So why is the failure rate so high? Why are millions of people still drowning in infinite to-do lists and working through their lunch breaks?
Because knowing the mechanics is entirely different from executing them. According to the research, the final irreducible differentiator between the people who drown and the people who succeed comes down to one specific character trait.
Which is?
It is not raw IQ. It is not inherited wealth or resources. It is discipline.
Discipline. The materials feature a fantastic thought experiment from Andrew Mason, the co-founder of Groupon, that perfectly crystallizes this.
Oh, the video game analogy.
Yes. He says the ultimate divide between winners and losers isn't intelligence. He used a video game analogy. If you were creating a character in a role-playing game and had 10 stat points to distribute, he said he would put 3 points into intelligence and 7 points into discipline.
A 7-to-3 ratio in favor of discipline.
Right.
Because high intelligence, without the discipline to focus, it's nothing more than untapped chaotic potential.
Exactly.
Mason defines discipline in the most grounded way possible.
Yeah.
It's simply doing what you promised yourself you were going to do. When your calendar block says, write strategy report at 8 a.m., you do not negotiate with your feelings.
Right, don't hit snooze.
You don't open a new tab to read the news. You execute the block.
And if you want to see what that 7 out of 10 level of discipline looks like in the wild, the sources point us right back to the ultimate test subjects, the straight-A students.
They are fascinating to study.
Their secret isn't that they have photographic memories or 160 IQs. Their secret is a brutal, unyielding regime of personal discipline.
The austerity of their habits is genuinely staggering to observe.
Listen to this list of standard operating procedures from these elite students. Avoiding social media entirely during the week, zero television, handwriting their notes to force deeper cognitive processing, using physical Pomodoro timers to ruthlessly enforce the 50-15 work-to-rest ratio,
Yep.
rigidly separating short-term tasks from long-term goals. They actually schedule their relaxation time on the calendar so that the rest is intentional and restorative rather than just accidental doom scrolling.
That's key, intentional rest.
And the detail that absolutely floored me, completely giving up dating during the semester.
They represent the absolute embodiment of the principles we've decoded today. Extreme, uncompromising focus. Zero tolerance for digital distractions. Rigidly enforced boundaries.
No multitasking.
Exactly. As the data notes, the concept of multitasking does not exist in their reality. They understand that multitasking is a neurological myth. It is actually just rapid task switching, which severely degrades performance and burns cognitive energy.
But giving up dating, giving up social media, that is intense.
It's extreme, yeah.
Yet it perfectly mirrors the principle Warren Buffett laid out at the beginning of our deep dive. Every single yes is an automatic no.
Right.
These students have internalized the reality of their 1,440 minutes. They are making elite, painful sacrifices in the present. They are saying no to socializing, no to romance, and no to passive entertainment for one specific reason.
So they have the bandwidth to say a massive yes to their ultimate MIT, which is academic perfection.
It proves that you cannot hack your way to elite success. Elite success requires elite sacrifices. You cannot have it all, so you are forced to choose what matters most.
It brings the entire paradigm full circle. You cannot manage time. Time is a relentless force. You can only manage your choices within the unforgiving constraints of time.
And discipline is the key.
Discipline is the internal mechanism by which you enforce your choices against the constant, overwhelming friction of the outside world.
Let's bring this all together. We have covered massive paradigm-shifting ground today, completely flipping the script on how you, the listener, view your day. Let's do a rapid-fire recap of the new operating system. 1. Trash the to-do list. It is an infinite receptacle that guarantees the Zeigarnik effect and cognitive anxiety. 2. Live entirely by a finite calendar. Treat your time blocks with the exact same reverence as a specialist doctor's appointment. 3. Identify your most important task, your MIT, and execute it before anything else. 4. Accept the profoundly liberating truth that you will never finish everything.
5. Say no without guilt, understanding that the future illusion is lying to you, and every yes is a no to your priorities. 6. Aggressively audit your life to find your 20%, and use the 3Ds to drop or delegate the bottom 80%.
7. Preserve your mental RAM by touching incoming minor tasks only once. And 8. Treat sleep and structured rest not as a sign of weakness, but as a biological weapon for peak performance.
It is a complete architectural overhaul for a high-achieving life.
It really is. To anchor all of this, there are 2 incredibly powerful quotes from the research that we have to share. The first is from Benjamin Franklin, a man who arguably accomplished more in a single lifetime than most do in 10. He said, "Do not squander time, for that is the stuff life is made of. Time is not money. Money can be lost and found. Time is the actual fabric of your life."
It's beautiful.
And the second quote is from Alfred A. Montepert, who offered this devastating observation. "Do not confuse motion and progress. A rocking horse keeps moving, but does not make any progress."
That rocking horse analogy should be framed on every desk. It is so seductive to be in constant motion, answering a flood of emails, checking off minor administrative tasks, running frantically to the dry cleaners.
You feel busy?
You are sweating, you're exhausted, you feel productive, but you are never actually moving an inch closer to your MIT.
So here is our call to action for you, the listener, as you look at the rest of your week. We want you to examine your own life with brutal objectivity. What are your personal rocking horse tasks?
What's just keeping you in motion?
Right. What are the things you do every single day that make you sweat, that give you the social permission to say, "I'm just so crazy busy," but are actually keeping you trapped in exactly the same place? Identifying those tasks is painful, but once you do, you can drop them, you can delegate them, and you can reclaim the actual stuff your life is made of. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought experiment to chew on.
A final reality check.
Look at the physical reality of your own calendar right now. Look at those little digital blocks of time over the last 7 days. If a completely objective auditor, a stranger who did not know you, who did not know your internal hopes, your dreams, or what you claim to value most in the world, if that stranger looks solely at how you spent your last 10,000 minutes, what would they assume your highest priority in life is? Would they see your MIT? Would they see your health? Would they see your family? Or would they just see a rocking horse? And most importantly, does their assumption match who you actually want to be?